Hey everybody, Trey Bowden here with the awesome cast of the Design Thinking chat that happens every single week. This is the post show, and we're going to be talking about edupreneurship. Melissa did a wonderful, awesome job at hosting us tonight, and I just wanted to give her a shout out. She did really great tonight. And joining me today is Amanda, Dan, and Joseph. Everyone say hey.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
So, just to begin with some selfish plugs, I'm super pumped to say that the event that Mount Vernon is going to be doing here in Atlanta in June is actually officially sold out, and so many yes. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So many of the DK12 chat mods are going to be there. It's going to be such an awesome time.
That girl over there.
It's going to be so great. So I'm really pumped about it. I'm really stoked that we're going to be able to see everybody in Atlanta. If you missed out, don't worry. We know that there's going to be plenty of tweets. There will be a huge back channel. There might be a very popular edgy blogger that might be doing some pretty awesome back channel stuff with us. I can't release any more information than that. I know. And also on the Wednesday night, the night before the event, we will be hosting live from the Museum of Design in Atlanta a live DTK12 chat, fireside chat, Q&A with Fuse participants. It's going to be awesome, and it's all about making social impact. And that's why I was really pumped about tonight's topic, is because I really think that Mount Vernon, and again, sorry to be in a selfish plug, but really engages in asking the question, how do we actually cultivate students who are people-centered and actually engaging with the world? And so it's a topic that I'm uber passionate about. I think that we saw in the chat a lot of new people, which I think that drew a lot of interest because of the topic. And anyways, I just wanted to throw it out. Guys, what did you guys think about tonight's chat? Was there anything that kind of like stuck out to you?
Who wants to go first?
We were all waiting on you to go first.
All right, I'll go first. I'll go first. So something I noticed that was really interesting to me about tonight was it took chat's DTK12 chat usually has like a few different like looks to it. Sometimes it's like a week of like every single thing that's posted is like a nugget, like a little like I can take that bite and like send it out to the universe. And then other days it's like total like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you can't find your way in because it's all just super conversational and you don't have any way to like engage because or you don't feel that way if you're new. Tonight it felt like this really peculiar hybrid because of the nature of the conversation. So it was like it was neat because I haven't seen it before. Where it was like an idea would get posted, and then what I think was happening was a lot of like, hey, these three people are now having this really intense conversation around this idea, and then these three people are having this really intense conversation, and these three people over here, and I think that might be because of entrepreneurism. Like it was just like, you know, because entrepreneurship is, while it's about collaborating, it's essentially about the self, right? I mean, is it about like finding, like identifying a need base and going, I think I can do something about that. I think I have some skills that I could apply to that. So I think it's just I think it was an interesting conversation that way, and so that was my first observation. It was a very interesting dynamic to how the flow of the combos went tonight. What other people notice?
I kind of saw the same thing. It did seem to do kind of what you said, and I didn't really. I kind of noticed it, but I thought it was my own. I really have trouble with entrepreneurship. I really have always had trouble with the idea of entrepreneurship, and it kind of came from what you just said, Dan, about what the idea of entrepreneurship kind of seems to be, and is is of you thinking that you have something to add, and it always seems to me that, wrongly so, I must add, that teachers sometimes come at it as that we may not have something to add as far as to the world outside of our classrooms, and I think there's a lot of layers to that problem, and I think a lot of people in DTK 12 chat kind of show that that is completely wrong, and in a way that's so big that I'm like, wow. I'm like shamed into action almost because of some of these people that are like you know, like Lisa, who's like dropping the craziness with some of the stuff that they're going on with, and who else was it that I kind of been talking to more here recently? What's her name? Regina, is it?
Reagan Weeks?
Yes, that's who it was.
Yeah, Reagan's awesome.
Yeah, from another Canadian. What is up with those Canadians? And just seeing how involved they are in their community and how they can get things involved in the community. And I'm at a school that's really, I thought my school was involved in the community, because I work at an elementary school that's named after, you know, David the Bubble Boy, and we have a this Saturday we have a fun run that raises thousands and thousands of dollars for the Texas Children's Hospital, and I always thought, man, it would be really cool if we got students involved in that more, because it seems like right now it's really major parents that are pushing it, and and a few parents sometimes at that. I mean, a lot more than a few. It's quite a bit more than a few, but it would be nice to see students actually take an initiative and doing something that's entrepreneurial in link with this, even though it is for a cause like a nonprofit cause. I think that's where I get hung up, is the whole idea. What is being an entrepreneur? Yeah, and I think that's the hard part with me, is what does it really mean to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Particularly for students, like, what does it mean to be a student entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Amanda?
I think that was definitely, well, just a little bit of a backstory. The program that I am over, we actually have an entrepreneurship class in our 10th grade component. So 9th grade is my class, which is a design thing, like intro to design, English, science, geography. In 10th grade, they drop the intro class and they take entrepreneurship, biology, and English too. And those are kind of the classes in which they get their design thinking and PBL. And at first, to be honest, I was kind of in the same boat as Joseph. Like, I didn't really know how the entrepreneurship was going to work because I didn't really know what it meant. Because, I mean, I feel like I'm decently close in age to my students, but the frequency of which the word entrepreneur was used now, as it was when I was my students' age, is exponentially higher. I think I heard entrepreneur on, like, career day when somebody's dad came in and said they own their own business, and I was like, that's cool, you're an entrepreneur, and that's all I knew about it. And so I was kind of excited and slightly nervous, you know, not being, you know, trying to get better about it, but not being the one that knows everything about, you know, what's going on, and kind of trusting my business teacher, who is excellent. Shout out to Jeremy Madden, who teaches in my program but does not have Twitter. But yeah, I know, right?
Dude.
So our students kind of took the approach in terms of entrepreneurship, more like social entrepreneurs. They definitely learned a foundation of entrepreneurship and business and the components of owning and creating a business, and we definitely took the empathy standpoint on, you know, creating business plans and models and products to meet specific users' needs. And so we really wanted to push that because they had that in the 9th grade. And so we wanted that to be something that carried over with them into entrepreneurship. So that kind of built a nice little bridge for us to cross over with them and kind of guide them along. But they're big. We did we did a big entrepreneurship project that we're actually still kind of wrapping up called our JAWS Challenge, and the abbreviation stands for Juvenile. Oh gosh, I'm going to butcher it. Juvenile work skills in action, and I'm messing that up, but it's something along those lines. But it was based off of Shark Tank, and I don't know if you guys have seen the TV show Shark Tank.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of based off of that idea, and students watched it and kind of,
Jaws, shark. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you get it. You get it.
Andrea.
Clever. Clever.
That was smart.
I don't want to say we because I don't want to take any credit for it because it was the kids' design, but we were working on this giant wall display to show some of their final products, like copies of the final products that didn't get turned over to businesses, and they cut out a huge shark, 4 foot by 5 foot, out of using a jigsaw out of plywood and painted it and screwed it to the wall, and it looks crazy awesome. But anyway, so students were challenged to design innovation for local businesses to meet their needs. And that's a really broad topic, but we ran with it. And so students, Blythewood, the town where my high school is a relatively small town. We're on the outskirts of Columbia. And so the list of businesses, there's I think they found there was 130-something small businesses with a 10-mile radius. And most of them, over 50%, were locally owned, like mom and pop places or one or two locations, but small. So that really lent itself well to us talking to people that owned businesses and that had started businesses. So our students contacted those business owners and requested interviews. They did research on the history of the business and how long it had been there and who its customers were and what their products were that they sold or what they did. And then the teachers in that grade actually just got a school bus for the afternoon, taught, kids had planned interviews. They had to plan out a route that they could walk to, and they got dropped off in downtown, and they had 2.5 hours to conduct 3 interviews with local business owners. And they walked to their little interviews, and they met with these people, and they were on a schedule, and really kind of got an idea of, not only what the business owners' needs were and what ways that maybe we could provide innovation for them, but also just about how they started their business and what was their motivation for starting their business, because a lot of these businesses, are small, but they've been around Blythewood for 30, 40, 50 years. And so they're doing something right and have been able to be changing and fluid. So I think that being able to expose our students to entrepreneurs who had done it, who had been there, really helped them get an idea of how broad that term could be and how many definitions it could take on.
That was awesome. Like America's Next Top Model Go-Sees is what that reminded me of, in a good way.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, you drop them off, and they had, X amount of time to visit X amount of people. They were very scheduled. They had prepped their interview questions in advance. They had to dress up. We had to turn kids away because they thought that wearing khaki shorts was the same thing as wearing khakis, and we had to be like, no, not the same.
No, not the same.
Welcome to the South. You better put on your church khakis, and we're gonna walk. And so, I mean, it was good, and they were excited about it, and they had some not so great experiences, and that kind of opened their eyes too. We had a couple business owners that had planned interviews, and then when they got there, refused to meet with them, were kind of rude to them. And, when we got back to school, we talked about how that could, a lot of these businesses rely on things like word of mouth. And, one of the grocery store chains in the town was really rude to our students who did nothing to deserve it. And so we talked about, okay, there are 75 of us in this class. If 75 people go home and tell their mom and dad, these people were really rude to me for no reason, think about how quickly that's going to spread. And we talked about the impact of the community on local business. So it was a teachable moment, but for the most part, it was really good.
That's awesome. So I'm curious why you guys think that entrepreneurship is a trending topic now within education. What is it about our time right now that you think that is really causing entrepreneurship to be such a hot topic?
Ooh, who wants to start?
think it's kind of the whole shift in the way we're seeing education culture, as in what is the goal of education? Is it to get, I mean, the whole idea of, and I know I feel like sometimes I say this too much, but the whole idea of you graduating from high school or even graduating from college and automatically getting a job, those days are over.
Oh, man, Joseph, you say that all the time.
I know, I'm sorry.
Oh.
But it just seems that the change in culture is more like, all right, now we need to teach our students to be able to be more of proactive in their approach to seeking out not just a job, but a career. Yeah. And I think finally we're catching on to the idea of that can really help us with, the whole idea of tapping into a student's passion can also help them in being a very motivated entrepreneur, because from what I've heard from different entrepreneurs, I am not an entrepreneur. I really am not. I try. But I am just, but what I've heard from other people that have really are entrepreneurs is that sometimes, to get you through the frustrations of what you're doing and the business not growing like you should, it has to be something there as far as what you're passionate about. And I think that works with our students, that they know that to get through those rough times that they might not have exactly what they want, they'll need to tap into their passion. And I think our education system is finally realizing that passion is the key to not only being successful as a learner, but successful as a person, a member of our society. And I think that ties into a big part of it.
I got a question for you though, Joseph. Like you just said, I'm not an entrepreneur, and then you kind of didn't really finish off that train, my friend. Like you were there, you started to get really vulnerable there. So I'm gonna push you to go to an uncomfortable place there.
Oh,
so
no.
what's No, we're all friends here. It's just you and me and the entire internet. So why don't you just cozy on up? What's making you say that you're not an entrepreneur?
I don't know. I think it goes back to what I said at the very beginning. Is I'm not sure if I'm completely. I think I need to do the whole thing that Amanda suggested earlier and take a walk around the town to find different ways of defining entrepreneur. Maybe that's what my problem is that my definition of entrepreneur, I mean, I'm very passionate about what I do, and I'm very passionate about teaching, and I try to be innovative with that, and I try to push the envelope, even at other people not liking it so much. But I don't, for some reason, I don't see that as being an entrepreneur. Just I don't know.
Yeah, so when I think about entrepreneur, I think of my dad, because my dad and my grandfather. Well, my grandfather started a business back in the 1950s, and he invented a way to basically how to calibrate speedometers. He called it a bodometer. I'm not making that up. Okay.
No way.
Yeah. If you remember, back in the day, when you would have records, you'd play records, and in order to calibrate the speed of the record of a 45, you had a light, and then it was like a checkerboard, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you had a fluorescent light, and if everything was standing still, it was at the right speed. Well, what my grandfather did was basically take that same concept and put speeds of 10 miles per hour, 20 miles per hour, up to 60 miles per hour on checkers, and then you would roll a car onto top of a drum, and it would spin this dial, and you would adjust the speedometer to make it perfect. And so he was he invented this way of doing this, and I think that when we think of entrepreneurs, we think of particularly that generation of where my grandfather is from, which is a generation that honestly, the lone wolf mentality of entrepreneurship was an extreme value, that you were the Boy Scout, right? You were the one leading the way, you were up front. And what's interesting is I think that then when it comes to leadership, how the next generation after that generation then applies that entrepreneurial spirit and continue to carry that torch was they had this very much of a hierarchical structure within their organizations. Now, what I think is different about the way that we need to begin thinking about teaching entrepreneurship to students today is that I think entrepreneurship is most successful and leadership is most successful if we lead like the way that our culture relates to each other. And if there's one thing that we can say about the culture of students that we have is I'm helping our head of school right now design a presentation around this, is that Forbes is calling this generation Generation We, which basically means is this idea that this generation that we're teaching are rarely alone and are always wired and connected, and that they're movement makers because they exist within a network. Like they are constantly in some form of a network. When you bring one of our students and you get them passionate about something, they bring a whole network of students that are passionate about something. And that's the nature of their own entrepreneurship, and that's the culture that they reflect. It's no longer structures that look like this, but it's structures that look like giant webs. And I think that one of the ways that we can really transform that is what would it look like to look at entrepreneurship as a student being relationally focused in order to create new endeavors that empowers and brings good to the world. And that's really what entrepreneurship is. It's not just this one person having to have this one vision and convince a team of people to follow them off the cliff, but rather it's realizing that students, entrepreneurial students these days, are really students that are created that have a network behind them already. So that's the reason why.
The ability to generate a network.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Right.
Because you know, how do you actually get them to motivate that network? That's where I would say that I think how do we step into that? That's when I think as teachers, this is what is starting to change this game, is this access to information, and on top of that, this constantly network generation. The truth is we have to empower students to access all of this data and look at all these networks and find things that they are wildly curious and passionate about in order to channel their networks. Right. And to also sift through all these networks around them. And that's what I believe is really going to cultivate an entrepreneurial spirit in a student, is that they've had teachers, and I really do believe it's teachers, that have allowed them and afforded them space to become wildly passionate and curious about something.
Now, I'm going to rock it back just a little bit to go back to the original question. Because what I think what you just talked about, Trey, is how we go about getting that spirit going.
Oh, and yeah. I didn't really answer the why question.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Rather than
I'm with you.
Why. So I'm going to go to a really practical point, I think, with why we need to be pushing entrepreneurship and using that methodology, per se, or for, whatever. That might be one way we go about doing it, but the conversation I'm having with students a lot, I live in an economically recessed area, as does most of the United States, because the last time I checked, it doesn't matter what Wall Street's doing. Most of the country is still struggling. And I know here in rural Maine, people are struggling. So from a practical point of view, I want my students to understand entrepreneurship because I think that's going to be the inroads to them having sustainable economic success.
Oh man, come on!
Whatever that means for them, that's what they're going to need. They're going to need to figure out how to carve their own path because the manufacturing jobs, they're not coming back anytime soon. They might come back. I mean, there's all the speculation that we're bringing back all this manufacturing stateside that's been shipped out. But the problem is we're not going to bring it back at the same wages. We're not going to bring it back at the same benefits packages. We're not going to bring it back on the same scale. They're going to come back in the hundreds of jobs, not in the thousands of jobs. Like, let's just be realistic. And the states where they're going to come back are going to be very selective, and it's going to be states that are super crazy manufacturing friendly. You know, they're going to be in Texas, they're going to be in California, they're going to be in the South. They're not coming to the Northeast, kids. They're not. Like, let's just, it ain't happening. So, but what is happening is we've got farmers. We've got, like, the farming industry is growing in the state of Maine in incredible ways, with this, like, focus on farm to fork, organic, whether certified or not, buying local, shopping local. All of that is having an impact around here. I don't mean people are making millions of dollars, but I mean we're seeing, like, small farms do okay. And how can we help kids see? Look, if you want to, if you're passionate about growing things, or you're passionate about being outdoors, or you're looking for something that's going to get you outside and still be a potential pathway to having a career, well, maybe this is one that you can do, because look, these folks have started one and they just decided it was what they wanted to do, and here's how they're doing it, and there's a model for you right here. But I'm getting a little down a rabbit hole that way, but my point is just, I think more and more, and I think this goes back, I think this swings around to teachers too, and why teachers need to be aware of entrepreneurship for themselves. In the same way that, like, just having your job is not necessarily a sustainable enterprise for a family anymore. Like,
and Dan, to that point, like, I wonder if that's even just redefining a teacher in general, of, like, just having your job as a teacher in a classroom is not going to be. I wonder if like, is that really going to be enough 10 years from now, or is it that really the jobs that teachers want, those jobs are going to need to be teachers that are self-starters, that are future seers. They are.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, it doesn't always feel like enough now. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, I mean, how many of us, obviously, considering we're sitting here at 10:28 on a Wednesday night on a Google chat, obviously we don't just teach and then go home and forget about, I mean, teaching has always been something that I feel like permeates your life if you're a teacher. But I feel like now it's not just permeating, it's requiring more doing. You have to find your PD. You have to make the connections. You have to educate yourself. You have to be the one to learn and find the technology. Yeah. And I think that entrepreneurial spirit can really kind of lend itself to, I don't think those of us that do it see it as a bad thing, but I think that could be a way to kind of pitch it to other people that are maybe kind of like, well, this isn't what I signed up to do. And it's like, well, maybe it is, and that's the new, kind of what Trish said, the new aspect of the job.
Well, I think it's that, but I also think that one of the reasons why we have to, well, at least why I feel like I have to do it is like, I'm at a loss for words. Here's a first for Dan. It's that if I start to pursue, we started Wicked Decent Learning, like, right? Everyone knows I tweet at Wicked Decent, but the reason that is because that's my buddy and I, Jeff. We started this thing, God, is it longer than 6 years ago now? 7 years ago? 8 years ago? We started this. We started Wicked Decent Learning. It's not a business. It just has a .com at the end because that's what we, we have yet to turn a dollar from it, unlike our improv. So our hobby became, anyway, weird. But we wanted to kind of establish ourselves in that world of consulting, and because we both looked at each other and went, we teach in Western Maine. Like, there's no even guarantee that we're going to have a job, like, as population dwindles. There's no telling what's going to happen, and we've got to, like, set ourselves up as people who can do other aspects of education and contribute and perhaps get gainful employment in some other domain besides the classroom. Mm-hmm. And I feel like as a professional, I'm in a position where I need to be thinking about that as a relatively young professional. Notice the relatively, but I mean, I gotta teach till according to the state of Maine, I gotta teach till I'm 64 to get my retirement. that will mean 42 years in the classroom. So something to just think about for me is I gotta pursue some of these angles because I don't know if I'm gonna make it, that many years. I don't know if it's a good idea for teachers to teach for 42 years. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, the thought that I'm on year 4, and not that I don't love my job, but the thought that I'm on year 4 and I've got 24 more to go just to retire, and then I wouldn't be able to afford to retire, And I feel like I kind of went in the same direction as you. I'm not near as established as you and Jeff, but like trying to branch out and like, stand on my own 2 feet on other things. And I don't know about you, but like I've kind of gotten some resistance from it. And it's like looking at you like, why isn't being a classroom teacher enough? Why do you have to network? Why?
Oh, do you know what I'm so tired of? I'm interrupting, and I'm sorry that I have to do this. If I choose to say I'm just a classroom teacher, I don't need anybody correcting me. So can we just go on the record as Dan thinks classroom teaching is completely valuable and sees his own job as valuable and sees classroom teaching as valuable, and I am so tired of when I am presenting or talking or having a conversation about teaching and I use the phrase, look, I'm just an English teacher. And what I mean by that is I'm not an admin, I'm not a district, I don't have any other. I am an English teacher. That's my job description. I do a bunch of other stuff. That's my job description. That's what I'm, that's why when I say I'm just an English teacher, you're not just. Don't ever say that. Don't ever say. Like, that's not a point to make anymore. It's just, it drives me crazy. It's okay to say in context, that you are what your job is, and that may be a frustration point for you. It's
well, Dan,
okay.
I think that we need to have man, you just got a lot of anger there, man.
No, it's just I have had that happen to me so many times in the past 6 months. So many times. Don't say you're just. I'm not. I am a teacher. I'm not.
You want to be like, have you met me? I am like you are one of the most positive people that I know when it comes to about your job. Like you're actually saying, I am a classroom teacher. I am just like everyone else, and I love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's all I'm trying to say ever. Yeah. It's like I'm just a lowly, like I'm not some like on high guy. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that my job isn't important.
or you're not trying to downplay yourself either.
I don't know. Whatever. It's just wicked. Oh, when Amanda started to talk there, I was like, oh no, I can hear someone. I can hear it just. I can hear the just coming. I can hear the just, and I can hear the attacks.
Amanda, do you want to finish your thought, or you want to
I lost it. It's gone.
Okay. Well, guys, it's been awesome.
Thought killer.
It's been awesome to connect once again, and but before we go, I just wanted to hear. I know that several of us have been working on design projects, so real quickly, what's coming up for you in the world of design thinking? What's winding down? What's coming forward?
Well, next week I'm going to a Texas Google Summit, and I'm using. I got accepted for 2 sessions to present, and I'm doing design thinking with Google Apps for Educators.
Dude, I really would like to know how you did that, because I was thinking about doing a session for that at the Gaffey's, the Georgia Summit, and
yeah,
so I want to connect with you offline.
Yeah, let's definitely connect, because I can definitely use some ideas to bounce off of Aren't you a Google certified teacher?
I'm not. I am a Google certified individual.
Oh.
If we make this go for another hour, we could totally have that conversation out.
Yeah.
Okay, what about Amanda? What about you?
I've talked briefly in the past couple weeks about that human rights documentary that my students have been working on. Well,
is it done?
If I don't work with iMovie again anytime in the next month or two, I'm totally okay with that. If I don't pick up another video camera or hear the 7 songs that are in these documentaries again, I'm great. But the documentaries are slamming. We are prepped and ready to go. We show to the mayor, town council, superintendent, board, community Friday night. So Friday.
Nice.
Will there be an online version of this available to where we can check it out?
I'm not going to stream because I'm not that fancy. And
yeah, you are.
Well, I feel fancy, but we know I'm not. But I will get those uploaded as soon as as Friday night is over. But it should be great.
Awesome.
It works their butts off, and I think it's gonna be awesome.
Sounds like you worked pretty hard on it too.
I tried to donate blood, and the woman's like, my iron blood. And she was like, have you been tired lately? I'm like, do you understand what I do for a living? Is that a question?
That's
yes,
funny.
I'm tired. I'm always tired.
Didn't you see my survey, what I put down for occupation?
So, what about you, Dan? What are you doing?
Oh, I got all kinds of crazy stuff. If I don't, the thing I gotta do before we go for certain is I gotta give a huge shout out here through the Hangout for posterity that my best friend, Jeff Bailey, co-host of Wicked Decent Learning, co-founder of Wicked Decent Learning, co-conspirator in Teachers Lounge Mafia, he was named 2014 Oxford County Teacher of the Year in the state of Maine, which is a really, really fantastic deal. And he just got recognized on Tuesday, and I'm super proud of the dude. And it couldn't happen for a nicer, more generous educator. Like, the guy teaches like 17 classes a year because he has like a class of like 3 and a class of 4 and a class of 5 and a class of 8 all in the room at the same time. Like, that's just how he is. And he's this amazing technology teacher. He's a good dude. And he's the tall guy in the profile pic. That's Jeff. And you can follow him at jbailey8 on Twitter. And he's just an amazing guy. And yeah, he's like my brother. And I'm super proud of the dude. So there's that. And we've got a really cool design thinking challenge around the graphic novel Watchmen that we are big time, deep in, and it should be epic. And hopefully by next week I can announce some more cool things happening around that, and some other cool stuff that's in the works. So, cool. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, to wrap, some of my students are finishing up their their amazing exhibit on design thinking for the Museum of Design in Atlanta, and so they're prototyping it in our school. And so it's either gonna be this Friday or next week. Moda is actually coming to see the exhibit. So like we are like running at light speed, trying to get everything hung and put on the walls. And our video kids are reorienting screens so that there's different screen orientations for all the video work that they've been doing. It's been a really rad experience. That's been a lot of fun, and we've gone through so many iterations of it, and it's going to be like one of the first examples of, I think, for me, of being on a design thinking project that not only goes through multiple iterations, but that actually ships, which is pretty cool because it looks awesome. So be watching our Twitter feed, Mary Cantwell's feed. She's been tweeting out a lot of pictures of the stuff going up. We've got a massive David Kelly mustache and glasses as a big centerpiece for the whole thing, and his involvement with design thinking. So really pumped about it. So, well, guys, thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah.
We'll see everybody next week.
Thanks, Melissa, for modding.
Yeah, totally. See you guys.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.
Later.